Good morning, everybody. Welcome here in Florence in a beautiful sunny day in Villa Favara. And I welcome, of course, all my panel speakers who were here, coming especially to join us on an education, panel on education, but not only. So at my right is Florian de Saint-Pierre. I don't have to present you, Florian, you're a founder of de Saint-Pierre and Associates, you're a headhunter, but I want to know a little bit more about you in a few words, because everybody knows you as a very important figure, having right ideas and very focused. Please.
Basically, my work is probably to be a family doctor. So the family doctor is when, someone or a company wants to feel better or is experiencing, a different phase and comes and just speaks. And I ask questions. So like a doctor, I will ask questions about how do they see themselves and how would they like to live. So basically, my work is that we are well known for recruiting creative directors and their teams in different fields, fashion, but not only fashion, and also working on CEOs. And at the end of the day, there is no difference. I can tell you we need people who can think in a creative way for both positions. And I am the founder also of Eyes on Talents,
yes.
Because I strongly believe that we didn't want to be perceived as third parties, so I wanted to invent a process where there will be no third parties between brands and talents. So it's a digital platform where brands and talents can find themselves.
Good, thank you. Carlo Capazza, we know each other since a long time, before with Costume Nacional, and now you are the president of Camera Nazionale della Moda Italiana in Milano. Thank you for being here, and could you explain in a few words where you are working on for the moment, because there is a word that is especially in your mind today.
Yeah. As you know, Camera della Moda Italiana represents an association with all the Italian brands. Except Dolce & Gabbana, every Italian brand is in there. And we represent half of the business of all the fashion industry directly, and 75% also indirectly. So it's an organization that represents very much fashion. Since I arrived there 2 years ago, I decided that with all the board to work on 3 pillars, and they are sustainability, education, new talents, and digital. And for sure that all the 3 very, very important, but what I can say that sustainability for me is a key word to describe future. And if we want to work in fashion for the future, we have to keep sustainability in mind. That's it.
Thank you. I go from right to left. Raffaello, you're the CEO of Pitti Immagine. We know each other since long time. And Pitti is not only an aggregator for inviting companies for menswear, but you do more. You do event managing, you invite famous artists, but also designers, and you're also doing a tutorship program. So can you explain a little bit more?
Yes, well, thank you for inviting me, first of all. It's a real privilege to work at Pitti. In fact, our company is the company that launched Italian fashion from Florence in the 50s. And in fact, we start our work, our existence, discovering talents. In that moment was Simonetta or Emilio Pucci. And we are continuing the same kind of work. And of course, things are deeply changed in the last few years. And we are trying to be just a half a step forward to the changes. This is the reason why we set up a foundation about culture and city discovery. We start working with the main and most influential artists, not because we are interested in art just for a business point of view, but because we think that a trade show organization need to be perceived by the real creative people, not like a trade show organization. When you speak about trade show, everybody usually is not so happy. They think about the hours you have to walk, how hot it is, there is not enough wardrobes, you eat very badly, and you have to queue, so it's a disaster. But in fact, this is the main business.
Yes.
We are trying to improve from this point of view. But in the meantime, if you want to deal like we did in the last 25 years at least, the creative people most interesting and really ahead of this extraordinary economy like fashion need to deal with somebody that also reflects about contemporaneity. Yes. And this is one of our main strategical lines to follow. In the meantime, recently, 1.5 years ago, we decided also to be closer to the young and non-young talents, because we understood that through the Who's on Next awards or the other events we set up for young designers, it was for sure interesting when the event or the fashion show, the installation used to be organized. But just a few steps after, 80%, 90% of the young talents or designers used to really get lost. And so we decided to invest in this area with Riccardo Vannetti, that is handling this direction in our organization. And our idea is to help them from zero till when they will reach around 1 million euros. From there, we think they can start walking quite alone. Good. But we are very close to them, helping them from a production point of view, communication point of view, legal point of view, everything they need.
We come back to talent coaching later. Jennifer, you are Jennifer Minniti, you are the chair of Fashion Design Department in the Pratt Institute. Could you talk a bit about what you're really doing in the classroom and how you see your job there, your responsibility?
Sure. So thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you all for coming. As mentioned, I chair the fashion department, the undergraduate fashion department at Pratt Institute, which means that I am fairly responsible for the future of fashion and what that looks like and its influence globally. Not just in New York, but New York's influence globally and that collaborative process. So that's how we teach it in the classroom. It's really important for us to make sure that our young people understand their responsibility in all of this as being part of the cultural economy. And also just as fashion as a social signifier, as a cultural message, its effects on human ecology, and its effect also on other art disciplines and design disciplines. And so that's what we do. And the second part of that, because how do you do that? Is we really work with each individual. And while it's a collaborative learning environment, we try to pull out each individual voice because this is a competitive industry, as we all know. It's tough, it's fast-paced, and if you're really sure about who you are and you have a strong point of view, then we really believe you will have the ability to build an audience. And so that gives you a little snapshot of Pratt and how we teach. Thank you.
Thank you. I go that direction now, Stefan, because you're the founder and the CEO of not just the label. We know all that, and it's an amazing platform for young designers. But you do so much more. Yesterday we talked a lot about your new project in LA. So can you a little bit, in California, can you a bit, explain what you are doing there, because it seems amazingly interesting.
Sure. I think what a lot of people don't know, that we have two large business units, where one is the community and where we now have about 25,000 designers and brands from around the world represented on it. And we then work with about 200 universities worldwide to keep this community active and creative and help the industry access that community. What we do on the other side, and that is more our revenue stream oriented side, is where we allow corporations, governments and city councils to access this community. And as such, over the last couple of years, we started working. Initially, I think our first project was here in Italy with the Regione del Veneto, where with Matteo Marzotto, we're organizing the Origin trade show, combining or bringing manufacturers together with designers. We're part of the biggest construction site in the world, which is the Dubai Design District, which in the future wants to become the creative capital of that part of the world. We then opened a store in New York City last year, funded by the city of New York, and that store only sells garments made in New York City by our emerging designers. LA, as you mentioned, is sort of our big project at the moment, where we're working on the repositioning of Los Angeles as a fashion city. And what is really fascinating is that the city has about 23,000 manufacturers in downtown LA. Out of those, about 12,000 manufacturers are in fashion. So the other 10,000 are in aerospace, tech, and the medical sector, but there's about 12,000 manufacturers in LA, which exceeds anything that we see worldwide. And now that the minimum wage is going up, the EPA, so the Environmental Protection Agency standards are so high as well, automatically what you manufacture there is sustainable, which now is becoming very interesting. And if you start combining that with the entertainment world, with Hollywood, then suddenly you have a manufacturing and PR machine which is unrivaled. And we're trying to find ways to sort of position that in the next 5 years.
Thank you. Sounds really interesting. Anya Kronberg. Hello. We know you from Vestoy, of course, the magazine, the writing you do, the thinking, the critical thinking. But could you say where you're working on and what is your preoccupation? How is your mind today?
Well, I think the term critical that you mentioned is one that I find really important, because the way I see Vestoy, which Vestoy now is, it's an annual journal that has been around for, well, we're in our 8th year now. So each time a journal comes out, we focus on a theme. The more recent ones have been slowness, failure, and last year's masculinities. So the idea is to look at each one of these topics from a point of view of, well, critical thinking on fashion, really, going all the way from making academic research and discourse more accessible to people who are not academics, but also including fiction, personal essays, interviews, and visual content, which, I mean, portfolios, that's really important too. So I'd like to think of Vestoy, which now has the journal, an online platform with also, or online site with separate content, and regular salons, I call them, kind of performative events that use a kind of approach, but somewhere between theater and I guess performance art, really, to also speak about aspects of fashion in a live context, and maybe in a way that's more personal or intimate than reading a text as you would either in the magazine or online. But always the idea is to bring or to present this critical platform, really, of thinking on fashion, which, at least in my opinion and experience, is not so very common today, for maybe reasons we'll get into later, but we'll see. Thanks.
Thank you. Last but not least, we have Danilo Venturi. I don't think we have to present him to everybody, but he's the director of Polimoda, and we thank you for having organized this event in your beautiful villa, and I hope we will have a good debate here today, and I'm very sure about that. Danilo, you want to present yourself?
No, actually, I don't want to present myself, also because you never know what is the final version of yourself. Now, we are in the, in the mirror room, so I can reflect and see what is the final version. No, I just wanted to say that we organized these events. We organized already one in New York. It was, fantastic, but also this one with the panelists here will be interesting, because I think fashion is not only clothing, and I think we have to talk about it. I think we have to create contents, because the word has a power. When you say something, you make it exist. So having such, a panel with these giants of fashion here is also a classroom for everybody that stays and remains in time and creates contents. That's why we do this. Just,
Yeah, I agree. I divided my talk here, my panel talk, in a few subjects. And it's fashion education seen by concepts and creative thinking. And I started with the most boring one, in a sense that the most concrete one, let's say, job profiles. Job profiles is something that for us is a daily concern, because our program reflects the industry. And we bring the industry in a portfolio, we recruit students, and that's our job. The question to all of you, one by one, is what do you see, members, coming from different experiences, because that's the point, as the most in demand or important job profile for the moment? It's a very precise question, but it's developing in the debate later. Yeah, I was looking at you, so you can start.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I would almost like to start with a counter question. I think the one thing that sort of, at the moment, sort of tickles me is just when I see people and I see students not being aware of where the future is going. And I think now it's so evident that, you know, in 10, 15 years, we won't be driving anymore. The internet is just the beginning. And I think if you then translate that down to fashion, where I think the biggest changes in fashion right now are coming from engineers and other industries, and they're not even being sort of recognized by people who are within the industry. And therefore then I ask, you know, are people actually ready for what's coming? And I think that is really interesting.
Yeah, Jennifer.
I'll just run from that in terms of how we operate through our daily lives has changed so dramatically in such a short period of time. Also, the way that we make clothes is changing, and I'm going to be interested in hearing how other educational institutions are handling that. The sewing machine, 3D modeling, the way that we output, how we produce locally now instead of globally, or how do we integrate those two things. So I really would like to end that with saying that I just hope that young people are really curious rather than frightened or unaware, that you have to have a very sophisticated kind of curiosity about you, we all do, to figure out how this is going to all play out.
Yeah, that was short and to the point.
I would like to divide this question in two. One very pragmatic. What do we need today? When you look at any company, any job research, what do we need is a merchandiser. It's always a merchandiser, product manager, digital people, whoever, communication or whatever, e-commerce, etc. And today something starts very much, and this not existing, is a CSR manager. That means people that are responsible for sustainability. This is a new job, and there is not enough of this. This is something clear today. That's what we need.
What's missing? Yes.
What's missing? On another hand, I have to say that we have to think also what will be the future, and this is a more delicate question, because incredibly what we see, the technology is going very forward. We think what maybe in the future we don't need any more human being to make clothing or whatever, but it's happening in a sense something that goes in an opposite direction. In Italy, for example, we have this phenomenon of reshoring, people that they bring back companies that they made outside of Italy, because they are discovering the power of good made clothing or accessories, the power of the handwork, the power of something that is more special, because there is so many products in the world that finally we have to think that maybe we need less product, and we need to product very much better made, with much more respect for the planet, for what we are doing. So from one side we see the fast fashion going very far, but the slow fashion growing very much. And I think we have to think about that, because probably what we need for the future will be also a lot of artisan, very good artisan people, good pattern maker. with people that they are very much technical and they can make a beautiful, unique product, artisan.
Oh, thank you. Florian, you must have a bright idea there on job profiles.
If I can beg you not to do a job profile for a designer. I think that it has killed so many brands. And I can really tell you from so many years working in this industry, I mean, when HR does job profiles for creatives, you're sure that your brand is going to be killed sooner or later. So give back the power to the creative community to recruit and to hire creatives to work for themselves, and they will do it very, very well. So you just have to allow them to dedicate the time. But I'm very, very serious about that, because I do not think at all, and this is, I really speak from experience, and we have a whole department dedicated to scouting talent and to working on every kind of designer position, no job description. And it's fascinating because the minute you eliminate this third party, which is the HR process, and the minute you reconnect the talent together, then it's not an issue whether the person has 2 or 3 years of experience. It's not an issue if the person has graduated from this or this school. It's not an issue anymore. It is about the person. So I think it's very, very important to reconnect the creatives together and to allow them to build their community. The second question, I agree with you on the fact that there are too many products. Probably we have to think to products that are meaningful, that have a reason to exist, that have a design content, and that are well executed, whatever the price point. However, now brands, and it has always been the case, brands are cultural players, and I think that fashion is a cultural player as well. So today, a creative leader is not only someone who can direct teams that create product, it's also someone who can create teams that create any creative asset. I'm thinking about image making, any kind of image making, any kind of physical experience. And it is where we see a lot of needs, because this has been a lot of focus on designing a lot of products, and now we see rebalancing with a lot of focus on the other creative asset, because the reality is that any brand, any product is accessed through a screen first, and all the creative assets that really engage you is absolutely key.
Thank you. Raffaello, tu hai un'idea che ti manca? Sì,
I have a lot of hopes,
yes,
so I have a lot of things to learn. And what Florian said is very true in our opinion. Also because today, and we have seen the success of young talents passing quickly from being the second or third in a big organization, being the real driving force to change the image, the positioning, not alone, but with all the stuff around them. This is the reality. And I think that, of course, looking at schools, you need the basis on which you need to have the right cultural informations and formazione, and you need to have the essentials necessary to enter. But then it's not enough, because you need a community around you that helps you to have a new idea or something evolving season after season. We have seen major labels hiring major designers. I don't want to do names, but having the worst results from a turnover point of view, from an image point of view.
Yes.
And so it's very easy from this stage to say that this is the way. In fact, it's much more difficult. But for sure, today we are also passing a very important generation change. If you look at the age of the designer that did the big success of fashion in the 80s and the 80s, 90s, that kind of designers, you have few exceptions, Karl Lagerfeld for sure, and a few others, but today, the consumer also is changing. There is a big subject of the millennials. There are more than 1 billion people, and they are very influential on the turnover, not just in Europe, but worldwide. And so you need people also able to speak with this generation of consumers. The easiest example is Gucci.
Yeah.
And so I don't know which kind of profile. Sometimes they are not really designers. There are sometimes different kind of people. I don't want to enter on the merchandiser or these are functions for sure, not profiles. You need that function, and you need the person, the candidate with the highest sensibilities for that kind or experience for that kind of position. But generally speaking, today you need like a staff around you. And this is the story of Tom Ford. It was not just himself, as we all know, and Carlo also. It was people around him speaking about communication, speaking about advertising, speaking about products and stories. And so it's much more interesting, in my opinion, than what it used to be. Somebody with a good hands, good sketches, and a good modellista, and then very good sample organizations, and that was mainly the mainstream to follow in the past. Today is much more teamwork, yes.
Danilo, you have those 4 departments in mind. Can you speak a bit about that?
Well, about job profiles, I think you need skills, and this is what we do mainly, like teaching people how to do things, whether it's design or business. And you need also talent, which is underestimated word, and this is what we do as well, like when we try to develop the personality of the student, because students normally they know what they want to be, but they don't know what they are. So we try to make them become what they are, actually. And this is a good portion of talent. And then, as also Raffaello told, you need a network. And that's why in this week, beside Fashion Displacement and beside the business links, we wanted also to launch the Alumni Day, because you see people who had a career, who opened shops, or who's a journalist, and they all come back here and they help each other, and this is very useful. But then going to the link between what is the content of teaching and what is the requirements of the industry. I see the industry at the moment is asking to managers to be creative, like not only accounting, but inventing new possible scenarios where to operate with your company or brand eventually. And from designers, in fact, I don't see designers around. Do you? I mean, they are merchandisers, brand managers, good in their job, good in what they do, but it's not the designer of the 90s we had in mind, like Galliano or McQueen. It's another thing. And so this means that the industry is asking to designers to be also managerial in some way. And then I see also, and this is a main trend, but then I see also a counter trend, because on the other side, the industry is also asking for very technical figures, like people who are doing things by hand. And this is quite obvious also, linking to what Capasa said. He said, sustainability is very important in this moment, is generating also job places. Right. The best way to be sustainable is to consume quality. So if you consume quality, you consume less, and it's more durable. So somebody has to do it. And the industry realized it, and they are asking for, very technical profiles. This is what I had to say.
Okay. Anya, be critical.
Well, I couldn't even begin to answer the question of job profile. I think that I would like to tie back to a little bit what we've been talking about already on the panel about, the word sustainability has come up a few times, and it's it's an important term and also a kind of buzzword at the moment, right? But I think something that I encounter again and again in the industry when I speak to people is this, how do you marry what you say you want to do or what you say is important, like sustainability, for example, with your everyday actual work, what you actually do. Like, how do we put our money where our mouth is? I think that we're not so good at in fashion. I mean, so many reasons, I guess you could speculate as to why that would be, but, one thing is to talk about what we want or what we want to be, but the other thing is whether we're prepared to make the sacrifices that would go along with change. I mean, on the one hand, of course it's true if you look at the environment that we need to consume less, but at the same time, the system we live in, I mean, capitalism is all about growth. So how do you marry that? It's a really hard problem to solve. I mean, and I wouldn't even know how to begin to answer that, or to, sometimes I think maybe it's not possible. Maybe it's not possible to have, on the one hand, a system that encourages growth for the sake of growth, and then at the same time tack on the notion of sustainability or, I don't know, any kind of political consciousness, which is so important today, onto that.
I have personally a question also. We have a lot of managers in job profiles. We have product managers and design managers and whatever. Is there not a talent manager missing? How do we do that? How do we manage talent?
For me, and I know quite a few talent managers, they should be in the design team. There should be a designer who selects the talent, and it works very well when it is one of the trusted member of the design team that selects the designers, that selects the graphic designer or the architects or any person who works on the creative field. I really can tell you otherwise. It is box ticking, and box ticking is really dangerous when it comes to talent.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. My second topic is, my second concept is slowness. So education needs time. 4 years is a long time. They come in at 18, they leave at 22. Not in the master programs, but anyway, we need time. In your edition of slowness, Anya, I found a really good sentence. You began with Milan Kundera, who said, there is a secret bond between slowness and memory, between speed and forgetting. But I liked another one. I saw in Vestoy about the ones who lead are, in general, those who understand speed. I like that as well. So how can we bring together slowness and the speedness of today?
Maybe it's not possible.
Yeah.
I think, sometimes I wonder whether, when you're a student, you're usually quite fearful, right? You're worried about what is going to happen with me when I graduate. Will I be able to support myself? Most students have some really practical things, just pragmatic life things that you need to find a way to solve. So if you go into the industry thinking that you're going to challenge the status quo, that you're going to be a disruptor, it's not very likely that you're going to very fast be able to pay your rent. Or, typically, people in positions of power don't tend to encourage others who challenge that power, right? So in a way, joining speed and slowness, if we live in a system that prioritizes speed, if somebody comes in and wants to slow everything down, well, it's going to mean huge disruption for those already at the top. And for those people, it seems, it's working, so why would they want something else? So maybe both students and those of us who teach students have to maybe encourage choices, or maybe it's something for students to learn as well, that you can't have everything. Maybe you can't have the speed and the slowness. Maybe you can't disrupt and fit in. Maybe it's more about choosing something, and trying to look within yourself and see, what do I prioritize in the industry? Is status important to me? Is a good salary important to me? Those are valid concerns. But if you go for that, it's hard to also think that you're going to be able to do something that is radically different to what's already out there. And if that's what you want to do, perhaps you have to find another way of sustaining yourself, or just, a lifestyle that requires less money, because that's also the practical reality. I think, to me, the students that I meet or have met, I think that's what I would encourage people to do, to just remember that you really can't have everything. That's just, some stuff we say to ourselves,
Choices. Danilo, you were thinking on something, I see.
Well, yes, I would like to say for our students, whether they stay 9 months for a master or 4 years, this seems to be a long time, but actually in their lifespan, it's nothing. It's like 1 day. And so also here you see speed and slowness fit together. And going back to the talent topic, which is apparently the one that triggers my interest today. But, in Italian you say talento, lento. Because for developing talent you need time. But at the same time, people who have talent, you see them. It's a gimmick that happens in a few seconds.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So again, here there's the moment where when you realize the potential, but then you have to develop.
Please.
Right.
I think that at the end of the day, it's both, but I think it's a matter of allocation of time. Because in fact, you want to allocate time to access things quickly, because now you have your Uber and your Airbnb and your food quickly, and you do not even have a kitchen in San Francisco. So it's about allocation time, and to get things, you do not want to wait. And this is the reason of the See Now Buy Now. If I go to Art Basel, I can access the most creative piece of art quickly. But the process maybe to produce it was long. So I think it's allocation of time to build a culture. It's a lifelong. So there are things that where we want to allocate a lot of time, because in fact the innovation and the change of the world has make it possible now. And then there are other things where it allows us maybe to allow more time, where it is to build culture and to develop our own talent.
I'm going just to Stefan, because I yesterday night you were talking about your 3D experience. You were shopping in your supermarket at home, they brought it home. You were looking at your apartment from the sky in a satellite. So the younger generation is they want it today. They're not linked to time as we were when we were younger, or maybe we had more time. How do you see that in a very fast-moving society where you are in for the moment?
I just want to say I don't have this technology at home. This was in a fantastic laboratory that I was able to visit in California, and they're working on the future of retail, how that will look like. But I think we need to almost go back and see, what was the internet here for, and how we're using it today. And I think slowly we're going into a direction to use the internet to actually help us in life. And the goal of connecting people globally was so that we have more time to spend alone or with our dear ones, or doing things that we actually appreciate and enjoy. And I think what is coming now, for example, self-driving cars, is people just looked at how you're spending your 24 hours in a day and realized that 2 or 3 hours a day you're following a white line on the floor. You're doing nothing else. You could do a million different things as well. And the same thing goes to shopping, where why would you go to a supermarket? Because you're literally just pushing a trolley around the aisles and you're always missing something, so you have to go back again, and then that's another 2 hours of your day spent shopping. And I think in there, what I would love to see universities giving to students is perhaps two things. One is the courage, and one is the tools to make decisions on their own. And I think
that's important. Thank
your question at the moment almost implies that we are dealing with this speed versus slowness that is somewhere out there, somewhere dictated by other people, and we can just follow. Instead, I think all of us should be leaders, and universities have to be leaders in terms of saying, I give you the tools, and then you as a designer, you can make a decision. I want to use the internet to speed up my sales process, but I want to slow down my manufacturing process.
Yes, exactly.
And our platform, I think, is testament to that we have 25,000 designers working in 150 countries, and they are actually now working as well as perhaps designers who have to travel to Paris 4 times a year.
It is, of course, a fast-moving society, and I think it's a beautiful society. It's good. I mean, I love it. And we can do more, in fact. But can we do it better? That's my question. You wanted to say something.
When we talk about how can we put together slow and fast, I think that sustainability is the key. If we are sustainable, and sustainable must not be an esoteric word, because today everybody say, I'm sustainable. Maybe they make a shoe with the yarn coming from the plastic of the ocean, but then all the rest they make is not sustainable. So we have to transform fashion in something sustainable, in true. Fashion is the second, after petrol, bad impact on the planet. Is the second system. So we have a huge responsibility of changing this matter. And this is happening in the environment, of course, in the social, and of course, and we have to change very much that. This means that we have to create some precise rules, what we are trying to do in the Camera Nazionale. 2 days ago we had this international table with all the brands from, not Italian, everybody. It was Vuitton, Burberry, all the Prada, Gucci, Armani, everybody. Why? Because we are trying to find some rules. We start with the chemicals, and we publish already documents with 360 chemicals and saying what we should not anymore use and what we should use in a very limited numbers. This is very important because we have to create some precise rules so we can say this company is sustainable, this company is not sustainable. Because until we don't do that, sustainability is, as I said, an esoteric word. Once we create that, so we change this perspective, we are not going to buy anymore a T-shirt to cost $8 because that T-shirt, beside the chemicals, because how the disaster to the ambient, is also paying somebody 20 cents because the guy or the girl or the child who has been sewing this T-shirt was paid 20 cents. This is the problem. We have to change this. Once that we put sustainability at the top of our culture in fashion or our choice when we are consumers, it changed completely also the system. At the moment we produce in the system, fashion system worldwide, 90 billions of pieces a year. 30% of those pieces that never go out from the factories. They stay somewhere. And then what's happened to all those mass of garments? We use very little, those garments. Some 30% we never see, and they are in the discharge place, whatever. We have to change this mentality. We have to give more value to what we are doing. The student, the future creative, merchandiser, whatever, they have to give more value to what they are doing. We have to stop this, because if we don't go in this direction, what we call slow, we are going to destroy the planet in a matter that we cannot recover anymore. And fashion will become something not useful anymore. If we fast fashion too much, there is no space for creation. It's already quite difficult. There is no space for thought. There is no space for giving value to what we are doing. And what we are doing must have a value. This is what I think.
Yes, I think
Can I add
also
to that?
that haute couture collection, like
Can I-
haute couture collections are sold are made in 5 weeks. A lot of collections are fast fashion. So maybe Zara is not the fastest or the slowest. I mean, some others are very fast.
When
as
I
well.
call say fast, I don't mean the product, the
Yeah, the product.
processed products.
Yeah.
It's
It's
the
more
consuming
time.
products.
It's time that we are
Consuming time.
time for maturation. Raffaello, you're the fastest person in the world. You're traveling.
Very, very short.
He's traveling
It's
constantly.
just a question of state of mind.
Yes.
There are no rules from this point
In
of view.
fact, yeah, that's
To be slow and to stop to be very fast is like trying to stop water with the hands. We are living, we know
In a
very
fast
well, the
society,
third
yeah.
millennium, and in fact, nothing, in my opinion, has changed from the stone period till today. And I want to be a little bit provocative, but it's the truth.
It's okay.
Because in fact, the day is 24 hours. The difference, the real deep difference, is the distance that you can do and the quickness, the opportunity we have to communicate with the others. But in fact, we sleep usually between 6 to 8 or 10 hours, and then we have an active period of 12 hours. Today we have the instruments to do more things than used to be.
Yes.
When Odissea nello Spazio by Stanley Kubrick has been launched with the this is the story. In fact, it's just a question of handling, following your state of mind, this kind of speed that is not decided by us. It's decided by a system that many people helped or decided to set up. Think about this is the simplest thought we can do. The story you spoke about See Now Buy Now, that in Italian, this is my opinion, has to be judged like a sola. I don't know what means sola. It's which is the sola translation in English. It's a fake story, because I know exactly how it works. Because I spoke with the people that has to produce for the labels. They're saying they're doing See Now Buy Now. The See Now Buy Now is just a marketing idea, but in fact the people, that producers for the companies that are doing See Now Buy Now, are producing, I say zero, but it's very little. And in fact, if you look what's happening, at least from a communication point of view, nobody is speaking anymore in the last few months about See Now Buy Now. Nobody needs See Now Buy Now, because in fact it's already existing. The fact that you can, if you want, it is pronto moda, have the fashion very quickly made. I think that it's just a question of the way you want to handle your life, and you want to launch your product, and the kind of product you want to offer.
Yes.
You know, it's an option.
It's a matter of faculty seeing a young generation and how fast they are and how fast we are.
Yes.
So it's putting in tune the two fastnesses of different generations, and I think it's possible.
Yes, but this is the engine of the growth of the world.
Yes.
For sure, my parents say that, when my grandfather, the way we used to live was much faster than my grandfather. The grandfather of the grandfather is saying, when we used to live, it was much slower than this is happening from the stone period. Yeah. It's just a way of growing.
How fast can we go to remain quality-based, to not lose our values? Yes. And that's actually an important question. But Jennifer, you wanted to answer something.
Yeah, I'm having a problem, I just realized this, with the language. I think we need more precise language instead of fast and slow, because that's just not where we are. Things are much more integrated in the way that we communicate, in the way that we produce. And what I really love about young people and emerging designers is the versatility that you all have. So I think better language, perhaps. I love value. As a thought leader, I want designers to be thoughtful. Can we put some thoughtfulness back into fashion? I think then if we approach the process or fashion in this way, as being mindful, as being thoughtful, of having value, then that's going to change the way that we produce, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Hopefully. So fast and slow, I'm just not sure it's relevant anymore, and I'm quite excited by that. But constructing meaning is. And perhaps constructing new values that will come from fertile ground, from the younger people and their new abilities. What I find fascinating is that just to describe this versatility that I'm seeing, I have a 6-year-old niece, and she's playing Minecraft, which blows my mind. I can't focus on it, you know, and she's able to do that with sort of one hand and answer my questions, and she's seeing what's going on outside, or a bird chirping, and there's this four-dimensional awareness or something that's happening, and I want to tap into that. And I thought, okay, she doesn't have there's no sort of hyperactivity going on here, but just a real ability to multitask in a way that I'm not used to, or I wasn't raised that way. I'm used to doing the donkey work. I tell students, well, you have to do it over, and you have to do it over, and you have to sew it again, and rip it out, and do it again, and do it right. Everyone's laughing. But I'm not sure that's the right way anymore. And so, so that's where my mind is going right now, is I'm thinking of how has the learning changed, and how do we construct meaning in a new way, so that that value is really strong, and young people have the ability to make a difference and to make it better.
Thank you. That was a bit a good end for that chapter. I'm going to flexibility. It was a word that came back to me a lot, because we have to be in this society flexible, you know? We can't stick to one idea and do this forever. And there is also, in the career planning, flexibility is key. It's not that you study for brand manager that you become a brand manager. Maybe you go to another direction and you become, I don't know, a strategic digital marketing manager, I don't know. But how do you see this flexibility? For me, it's a multi-layered knowledge, you know? The knowledge is a package of layers that you, at the end, you have to make after your graduation, based on principles like openness, curiosity, intuition, vision. Those key elements bring you to knowledge. And how can we say to the young generation that knowledge is key, with as a word that is flexibility, but based on your career planning. So flexibility, how do you see this, Florian? Because I think it's one for you.
Flexibility, I think, is a mindset. It's not something that you can learn, but you have to prepare to be flexible. And being first thing to prepare yourself, probably from day one to the end of your day, is to be curious. I think it's very, very important to develop curiosity, and in schools to develop curiosity on every field of the contemporary culture. To sit down in any place, public place in the world, and just to look at people and to observe. I think that every great talent, creative talent, has been a great observer and a great catalyst of his or her time. So curiosity, observation, and of course this brings to flexibility, flexible mindset, so absorbing the time, absolutely absorbing the time, and being able to be ahead, because you also have the flexibility to absorb culture. And I think it's always this major awareness of every kind of cultural and contemporary field that can help you really build the next step, because today we are not in an industry that should be on the repeat mode. I think that this industry has been on the repeat mode for too many years, and I think that it's the time to reset, and we can talk about the solar in a different place, but I think that the big reset is in fact to come back to common sense. We are both from countries that where fashion and the audience were connected. This was the haute couture. Fashion and the audience were connected. It was, in fact, an early see now, buy now. You have your client, you have your designers, and you have your client. There was no third parties. You could see now, buy now, order, and it was the time to make the thing done. I don't think that today you have your designer, you have fashion shows for third parties, and then you are copied by everyone, and then you don't want it anymore when it's at the end of the day in your store. So the creative process with flexibility has always been anticipated. Before the fashion show, there was all the creative process. Then it was the production process. Probably it is to limit production to some kind of, instead of selling to department stores that put your clothes on promotion at 50% off in the US, you give more value to your things. So it's all this flexibility of mindset that we have to think to give more value, to probably limit the number and enhance creativity, because creativity shouldn't be copied right away, shouldn't access on the fast fashion before. There's been a lot of work that has been done. So flexibility, not being on the repeat mode, I think it's a great opportunity, in fact, that is happening now, thanks namely to the internet.
Yes.
May I
So
add something?
flexibility in education, yes.
Because I think that there's, I mean, the way we're talking about fashion now, it's like we're talking about the upper echelon of the industry, like what we call high fashion. But I think it's also relevant to think about how people actually consume fashion, because the people who buy the kind of fashion that you seem to be talking about, Florian, is such a small percentage of the people in the world, right? Like most people wouldn't look at something on the catwalk and then go and expect to buy it, whether it's a week later or 6 months later. I mean, most people consume fashion completely differently. I mean, we buy the fast fashion, we buy second-hand fashion, we buy the mid-range fashion that is not shown on any catwalks. We consume those brands mainly through their secondary line or their perfumes or their accessories or all the host of little things that they also put out, which then leads me to believe that maybe what's being shown on the catwalk is not really meant to be bought. Maybe it's more meant to be a kind of showcase for all the other things that you can buy that are associated with a brand. And that's the system we seem to have today, where, you know, a fashion brand shows something on a catwalk in order to generate buzz and attention, and then what we are actually meant to consume is something else that the same company produces. So yeah. Maybe it's a whole shift in system then that needs to be addressed if those clothes on the catwalk are really going to have any kind of relevance for, you know, a larger amount of people than who they speak to now.
Just to add something, and I would not want to, it's a really conversation.
Yeah.
I think that there is a word that we need to challenge, it's buy. Because people are not buying. Because of Instagram, they want to change, they cannot wear, and the young generation doesn't even want to own things. So when I was absolutely amazed when I was looking at the Vestiaire Collective growth. I mean, it's about renting your clothes, it's 60% growth per year. It's around 100 million euro turnover. But in fact, they raised fund for, I don't know, for 50 million to expand. So I think buying is also a concept that we have to challenge when we see rental wear, when we see all these things. When this rental wear today, I think it's the largest dry cleaner in the US. So it's also access versus ownership that we need to face.
Yeah, ownership is an interesting topic. I'm coming to you, Carlo, for the Italian industry. This flexibility, is it there? Or do they not stick to their values?
Well, this is a good question. In a sense, Italian power has always been the power of adapting themselves. Italians are very, very good in adapting and in solving problems in a very short time. we talk about fast fashion, but you know, because you are since ever like me in the business, that sometimes a designer has been changing collection in the last 3 days and asking for new fabrics, new color, the treatment for the fabrics, and nowhere else in the world you can do something like that. In Italy, you go to the fabric maker, you say, you know that fabric? Okay, I want the gabardine, but I want paper hand, and another say, no, I want soft hand. No, I want, and this fabric maker is making the gabardine in 100 different versions, and in the night and in the morning after you get.
Is it still?
Is it still like that? Is it
like
more
that?
like that? Because this is the good part of the Italian system. Is made of micro companies, small companies. That all together they make this district. But in the district there are all those small companies, and this is the power of Italian production. This is why most of the luxury goods are produced in Italy. Today, 41% growth of the whole production of accessory and clothing and ready-to-wear is produced in Italy, in Europe. The second country after Italy is Germany with 11%. Then there is Spain with 10%, France with 8%, and England with 7%. There is any other business where one country in Europe has 30 points more advantage on the second country. Any other business. This means that we are really still leader in producing fashion. And this is a big value that you find in India, a big advantage. So I think that the industry is very flexible and is becoming even more flexible. So I don't see a difficult there in the industry. I think that companies have to become more flexible.
Yes,
this is
fact,
something
that's
different.
my
You know,
question.
It's not so much in the field, not so much in the, in the production field or whatever. But companies sometimes they are not flexible enough because they are quite rigid, quite related to the past. They don't see the future. She said something very interesting about what new generation look. They want to rent clothing. They want another approach to clothing. So companies have to become much more flexible, and this is something where they should work very much on. But I want to point to one other thing that is important in what we are saying. We are talking about the people that can buy something immediate there in the fast fashion or slow fashion, whatever. But the intellectual protection is at the center of what we are saying. If I make something and somebody can make exactly the same in a week, why we educate those guys, those girls, to be creative if that creation will stay 1 week and somebody will copy with a big way of production, and they will lose the power of the creativity. So what is happening today without intellectual protection is killing fashion. I think we should work with much more attention to intellectual protection.
Yes.
But couldn't you argue that in fact the whole, I mean the fact that designers do have to innovate all the time is in fact what forces people to be creative. I mean, it might not be good for, the individual designer and certainly not for the small company, but for the industry as a whole, I mean, isn't that what drives fashion? That you're always afraid someone is going to copy you, so you always have to do something else.
This is the point, because if they copy you, you have to do something more, and then it's becoming too fast. But I was used, when I was a kid, I was going in the street, there was some people selling fake music, and they were saying, you cannot buy that, this is very much, is a criminal. And then they were saying, I was saying, I don't buy, I feel criminal if I buy a CD from those people in the street. And then there was some other selling fake bag of Vuitton, and they say, no, this is criminal. And now it's not criminal to have 1,000 and thousands shops and to sell exactly the same stuff that somebody has been creating months before. So I don't get the point. You understand what I mean? Why is not criminal to sell something that is an exact copy of something else? And I think that this push fashion to become too much fashion fast, because you say, they copy me, I make something new. They copy me, I make. So let's stop the copies, or what those people they do. It's too easy for a fast fashion group to have a group of people that they just take product from the market, they copy in 4 weeks. I don't think this is I think it's criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we talk about flexibility and knowledge, Linda, I want a class on that. From the academic perspective, let's teach a class on knowledge and flexibility, because it is hard to teach all of the past, because there's so much past, and students are just so immersed in right now and tomorrow. So, but I'm also now realizing high and low fashion, the definition of fashion is changing, and I'm really excited by that. And so if this is still such a problem, and it is, copying and fast fashion, then the way that I approach this in the classroom is through collection. And yeah, the runway has been a kind of theater, and there's been a narrative, and there's a message. Why are we looking like this today? Why are we supposed to dress like this today? What's going on in politics? What's going on with gender identity and all of these other issues? But perhaps the way that we present clothes or fashion should change. And with collection now, I'm thinking, why do we have seasons? What is the narrative? We have all the options, perhaps sometimes in one collection. In my own work, I'm thinking of inviting other people to be part of the show, because when I buy from several different people. I assemble myself through a variety of means and ways and different points of view. So in the collection, I'm allowing students to recontextualize. I don't want to say it's repurposing or upcycling, or but to recontextualize and to recreate meaning in things that are already there and exist. And so it's where deconstruction was very popular for a while. I'm reconstructing that back. And what does that look like within collection? If we change collections, then things start to really shift. And as we said, the consumers are buying differently. And so, can we tap into that? Rather than being forced by them, can we impose something else back on the platform?
I'm glad we're discussing flexibility in Italy. And I agree with you that Italians are flexible. Sono italiano, therefore I can say it, but Italians are also flexible when it's 3 minutes to the deadline. So, and I think the luxury industry feels very much like that as well. It's just, I think there's just sort of, for the metaphor of trains, there's one train going to innovation and it's already moving, and there's another train towards irrelevance. And I think that's where most people in the luxury fashion industry sit on right now. And I think there's so many concepts here, and I agree with the copying and the counterfeiting being an issue, but I feel like what gets copied is fast fashion, and it doesn't matter how high or low that is, it is priced, because I don't see any difference between a Louis Vuitton handbag and an H&M one, because in the end it is fast fashion. It doesn't matter anymore. It just caters to different types of people.
Yeah,
and therefore,
that was my point. Yeah.
And therefore what gets copied should be copied, because it doesn't deserve to be unique. But I think as soon as you start creating unique product, and I think what is really important or as your sort of weapon against counterfeiting or IP, or as an IP protection, is your route to market, and that doesn't exist in luxury. And I think there's more and more designers that I meet around the world now who say, we don't sell wholesale anymore, it's a waste of time. Like, we don't go to trade shows, it's a waste of time. We sell direct, because they found their way of selling through Instagram, they found their way of taking orders on WeChat, and they just wondering why would we even play in that game that doesn't make sense for anyone. And therefore, I think in there, obviously, there's a lot of brands that have a supply chain that can't change right now, and that just makes it very difficult for them to change. But to give you an idea, we are completely relaunching our platform in a few months, and to do so, we wanted to ask our designers what they thought and how they are currently operating their businesses. And we asked 25,000 designers on how they sell the most right now. And 91% of them said, so 91% out of thousands of brands around the world said that they sell direct.
I agree totally with you that all the future brands are thinking to go directly to the consumer. And for sure, the internet gives a great chance. What we have to pay attention is to not make fashion becoming only product. Because if we make fashion becoming only product, we lose something important in fashion. That is what she said before. And the fashion represents also a description of the society. It represents also sometimes is advancing what is going to happen. So fashion is something also very sociological. cannot lose that completely, because if every becomes product to sell, I don't think that is really the soul of fashion.
Yes. I was, my next question was to you about those 25,000 people. But not only how they sell, that we know that online it's perfect, but do they have enough knowledge about retail? Do they know how, you have also on your website services for designers. And everybody here on the table, PT, also you have some ideas, Polimoda, on how you with the camera we deliver those people, and then there is a gap between the school and reality. And that gap has to be filled with interesting projects. Everybody's trying, but I feel nobody has really the key still to that answer. Maybe tonight after the debate we have it. So, Stefan, what is that services for designers? Do you feel they're ready to go online and sell their products?
Well, I think, you know, the big secret at the moment is that I think we all in fashion now agree that we need the reset button.
Yes.
But nobody really knows. Nobody has pressed it. Nobody knows where it is all going. And I think that's why we see these different models of, you know, see now, buy now, which I agree was a trial. It was a good trial. It doesn't work at the moment. It doesn't work for that type of brand. At the same time, trade shows, I'm sure you can give us more details about that, have to change as well. I don't think Instagram will solve all of our problems, but at the moment they're being very smart about that. And at some point they will launch a shop now button where you can just click and actually get what a young artisan, perhaps in South Africa, is making right now. Therefore, there's no rule. The only thing that exists, or what we always tell our designers, is don't accept the system for what it is. You know, you can flip things around. And the stores that we have open around the world, we flip the model around. For example, our store in New York, we were paid to open a store. And then we went to the Hilton Group, and they had the choice between Chanel and Hermes for their big retail store, and they actually paid us to move in. And it all flipped around. We had we sold basically out what we had in the store. Everything was made by young emerging designers in New York City. We gave 100% of what the store made to the designers. So when a consumer came in and bought a handbag, that money went to the designer. Because we had already made our money through the City of New York and the Hilton Group. And the Waldorf Astoria, which was the hotel we were at, they made $6.9 million in PR value in the first 3 weeks leading up to Christmas. So, you know, you can almost sort of take any model in fashion and flip it upside down and try if it works. And that's what we did with our trade show in Vicenza, where we bring manufacturers and designers together. I remember the faces of the organizers, and we said, if we create a trade show, the trade show needs to be for free for the designers. And we want to have the money to pay the flight tickets and the hotel and the dinners to the designers. Because if we have that kind of money, we can then pick the best designers and not the ones who have the deepest pockets. So, I mean, you should have seen their faces, because we spend 400,000 euros on flight tickets to get them in every year. But at the same time, what it had such a huge and positive effect for the region, because finally these designers, the right people, came into a trade show. And I'm sure you know the value of creating a trade show where you need the right exhibitors there to actually then create a benefit for the whole region. And I think Florence profits massively from a curation at PT. And it's not like, you know, magic in Vegas where whoever pays can go, and then it becomes this big operation.
Yeah, thank you. Carlo, you have the Fashion Lab.
Yeah.
You give support for young designers, young brands, but visibility is not enough.
Yes.
How can we give them more? How can we give them more support?
Communication today is a key word, no? Because you have to communicate for sure what you're doing. If you're doing something, people they don't know. It's like you're not doing, of course. What Fashion Lab is an incubator at the end. We choose 20 brands every year together with UniCredit, that is our sponsor. And for 1 year, those brands, they meet people, very good people, that they teach them, they check what they're doing about business for sure, like if they can do the business plan or a cash flow. And then we put them in contact with the department stores and distribution on the web side, etc. Then we work checking if the production field they are proper for the brand, if the distribution is well organized. We put them in contact with people from digital to teach them how to improve the digital side. And in October, normally we start this in February, March, now we started a new year. In October we have 2 weeks all'Rinascente in the floor, in the annex is completely to those designers. They do trunk show and selling for 2 weeks directly to the final customers. And in December, 13 December was last year, they have a meeting with the investor that they are investors, they can invest only minority stake and at least for 5 years of time. So it's something I would call ethical investor that helps us brand, and very often they need also, they need money, they need finance because they start from zero. So this is what we are doing. Of course, we can do better, and for sure what you're saying is right. We should promote better those brands, find a way to be more effective on the promotion. But we started last year, you know, it was the first start, and I think it's important to start those processes because it was never before.
Yes, thank you. You want to speak about pity and the fairs because
the reason why people is not to miss pity. In fact, we know very well the reason why. Of course, I'm joking, but I'm in the meantime serious. For sure, for the community, mainly of retailers, it's very difficult to do a real, deep, well-done scouting. And the investment you do or you need to discover what we offer them in few hours, in few days, it's unique. For sure, digital will be the future, but we know all that to be successful in digital you need as much physical as possible, in the sense that you need first to touch and see what's going on. My UX experience says that close to 70% of the sales made on the net have before a physical experience. This is the truth. Yes. People goes and check and then buy. Not always in the same season or the same moment, but this is exactly what happens. Yes. And from our point of view, presenting the collections 6 months ahead of the delivery in the shop, this is the evaluation of our customers, is that they come to Pitti, they see a lot of things, they discover new accessories, new collections, and they have the opportunity to add some offer to the...
it's like a few months off, you go to...
and
then you trigger again your brain.
I think that trade show will always remain. Years ago, I came back to the Stone Age. It was easy to exchange a banana with an apple. Now you change probably in a trade show the offer of a product with then the opportunity to buy it. Yes. The physical, in my opinion, essentially, it's the same story of fashion shows. Somebody is saying fashion shows are not any more useful. It's not true at all. You need, because of course it's a communication option, it's also a way to be in touch between the creativity, the designers, all the community going around this business. Yes, so it's just a question of option, of changing, of timing, the way you do it, men, women. We know very well that the pre-collection are sold in November and May.
Yeah, emotion.
If we take emotion away from fashion, it doesn't work.
Before going to my next concept topic, which is utopia, I wanted to also, Danilo, for what you are doing for the younger generation. I saw somebody in the hall, because you are also giving a platform to the younger generation for developing talent to support them. But is it enough? We can do better, we can do more. Maybe utopia is the solution. So I'm jumping maybe to that one. You reserve your inspiration for...
No, Anya before tried to light the fire, but now I'm lighting the fire. And I'm starting from flexibility and arriving to utopia. Okay. So first,
Utopia.
when we talk about flexibility and we do it in the context of job profiles, flexibility means that you can be fired. Period. So this at least meant for my generation. Second, flexibility for the new generation, I mean millennials, as they are millennials, they say flexibility is the contrary, is raising salary I need money. Okay?
That was what we discussed yesterday.
The people we have in school, they are already beyond that.
Yes.
And they are more conscious, more aware, and even more balanced. Maybe mature because they are very young, but not my generation, not even millennials. Okay, so this is a new generation. And we all used, in a way or another, the word change, but we never said how. So I think the flexibility at this point is multidisciplinarity.
Utopia.
Yes, meaning that at school you can afford to do what you cannot afford to do in industry, like experiments. Okay, I always say monsters, but we understand
Yes.
what I mean, like create the unpresentable in the beginning. And so what is the solution? Is it keeping on dreaming? Yes. On one side, yes.
Yes.
Because, fashion, and this was a discussion I had with the trend forecaster, and the trend forecaster who said, now we need to analyze data for knowing what's happening in the future. And I said, no, at all, because fashion is judged and made and then bought according to the quotient of unpredictability you are able to put inside, and not to the quotient of predictability. So, away. What remains? Creativity. Yes, empty word if you don't feel it is something. So, what do we do at school? At school we started a work with teachers, head of education, big work to make students apply some projects for companies already in the third year. Why? Because this means that the student can experiment for the company, and the company can get the experiments and say, oh, so we could push forward, we could do something more. We could, it's not the internship or the job placement you have in the end. This is necessary, it's cool, useful, whatever. But it's even more, it's mixing school and industry at a certain point, giving to the industry the quotient of unpredictability that fashion school can give. I think this
Unpredictable, I like.
Yeah, because students, you never know what they do.
Yes, we are quite working on all the predictability. We want to know everything. We want to perform well. But can't we leave a space where we experiment? There is of Marina Abramovic. There are so many examples for the moment, and I think education is missing that platform. I was looking last few days, Sunday, I think, on Einstein on the Beach. It's an opera written in 1975, which is so contemporary, so modern, and bringing so many creative industries together that I can't see this impossible today. Aren't we not stuck in our daily concepts and stuck in our job profiles, probably our own? And can't we open the doors to a newer kind of education? I talked with you informally, and I feel that there is also a need and an enthusiasm for bringing a kind of new discussion on the floor. So how can we do this? Is it possible, or is it maybe a dream that will never be realized? Florian?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to take off because there is the Italian Minister of Culture and there's a lunch at 1. I advise.
Maybe you can present him the
yes,
new platform.
so I apologize with you all. I'm sorry, but I have to go.
Thank you.
So I'm
Thank you
missing this interesting presentation. Grazie very much. Un bacio.
Ciao. Ciao, ciao.
Scusate.
Danilo, come. Yeah. Okay. So, Anya, do you have an idea on this? Is this appealing?
Which part exactly?
Well, we were talking also, we're both living in Paris, you know, and you felt like not connected, like not being able to change things. Are we making changes or not in our society? Are we, educators, writers, philosophers, headhunters, are we really ready for change?
Well, what we talked about yesterday was, I mean, specifically what I've been trying to figure out is how to remain part outsider, part insider, and that's that difficult balance that, for me, at times, I feel it gives me, on the one hand, ability to provide a kind of critical, if you like, look at certain aspects of the industry, but also being the observer means that you don't have real power to change things, because change tends to come from the inside, not really through revolution from the outside. So, I mean, I don't have an answer to that at all. I mean, this is, I think, an ongoing process, not just for me, I'm sure for everybody who identifies with having one foot in, one foot out, or who finds that an appealing place to be. I mean, I guess listening to and being part of this conversation now, what I'm left thinking is that we've talked about so many different concepts, but all in the abstract in a way. It's like, how do we go from, you know, a think tank of 8 on a stage, toying with ideas, or you know, speaking of utopia, to actually practically something, you know, being able to change or to affect.
Seeing us tomorrow morning.
Huh?
Coming back together tomorrow morning.
No, but this is actually something I get frustrated about a lot when it comes to fashion, that we talk, we have such big words, we have good intentions, but how to apply those good intentions to practical situations, or even how to take a worthy concept and speak about how we have been able to or unable to apply that in our own life, in our own work. Somehow that, to me, is where we often fail. It's like it's easy to talk about concepts. It's way harder to, you know, to stand behind something and say, well, actually, in my own life and work, this is how I'm looking at sustainability, for instance, or this is how I mean, whatever the concept is, this is how I have invested in, you know, X, Y, Z. And at some point, I think any discussion that one has, it kind of has to end up there, no?
Yes.
Otherwise, we end up repeating ourselves. And
yes. But I think it's good to see each other again, in a way, because otherwise it remains there. Danilo.
What?
Utopia. What is the future?
Utopia. No, I told, in my opinion, what we can do is making of the school a laboratory and involving also the industry inside. Separation between the two doesn't work, but this doesn't want to be, utopia literally as an empty world of dream without practice. I'm talking about doing things.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, when you have an idea like failure, which is a great idea, it came now. Can you imagine create a collection on failure? It's wonderful. And then there's a company there, they like it, they produce it, and the designer becomes the designer of the company. I mean, this starts from utopia, but becomes something practical. If you make of the school a laboratory, then it works. For me, this is a solution.
Florian, we were last year in July with you, with students of luxury business, and your word at that time was connect. We have to connect. We have to connect not only through each other because we have a community. You say that, Anya. I go to Berlin and I see the same people as me. It's not that I see different people. I recognize the people wherever I go. So how can we connect with people we don't know, with scientists, with researchers, with other people?
I think that to achieve this in a meaningful way, we have just to be clear on the purpose of fashion and so the purpose of education. What is the purpose of fashion? Because otherwise we can produce designers, but what is the purpose of fashion? And I agree very much with what you've said. I think the purpose of fashion, if I think about those iconic persons such as Miuccia Prada, Armani, Chanel, Saint Laurent, they really, were connected with their time, or just a little bit ahead, so they were able to be the catalyst of society. Their role was very much to be, it was really societal. We could elaborate this. And Helmut Lang was, for example, as well, very, very societal. It was even the word political at one point when we think about all the punk movements. So it was really the catalyst of society. So if we believe that fashion, the purpose of fashion is really to be the catalyst of society, because otherwise it's just narcissism. And I do not believe that if it's just a narcissistic, it is very, very meaningful, but then it will not resonate with the society. So what do we want? Do we want to value creativity? And it's maybe close to art, or maybe do we want to value a creativity that reflects or interacts or connects with the society, or catalyst the society? And if you look at every brand that started small, because every brand started small but became big, it's because it really resonated. What's probably is happening with Gucci today, it's really creative, it's super creative, and it resonates because it's question beauty, it's question gender, it's question society, it's question creativity. So I think that we have to be clear on the purpose of fashion and then the purpose of education, because then if we believe this, we have to have people exposed in a very multidisciplinary way to contemporary culture. And of course, process is important, techniques and process. But tomorrow there will be other process. The other day I was in the US, and I was told that now in some schools the creatives will learn how to code, because in fact they will be even more creative and free to code rather than to go through pattern makings. So the processes will evolve. If you are a writer, you were using a feather, then you were using an ink pen, then you were using a typewriter, and now you use your laptop. So I think
it's an evolution.
It's an evolution of the processes, but I think that we have to really to be clear on the purpose.
That's a good one. Carlo, how can we connect, or how can we start from a white page?
Well, first of all, I think that, as you said, fashion is to transform a sentiment in an icon. And this is the process. No? You take a sentiment, whatever is in the society, and you transform it in an icon. Today is much easier to be on the market because there is so many talents that they push you in the market, but much difficult to stay in the market because the market is driven by those big groups that make a huge investment. So we have to find another way to give the possibility to small company to be alive and to grow with another system in another story. And if we don't put together all those new things that they are already around, but we have to make out a system, because everybody is talking about sustainability, about the web, about different distribution, about cooperation, collaboration, whatever. Yes.
About emotions?
Emotions, that is...
How do you check?
For me, emotion must be... Fashion is based on emotion. As I said, is take a sentiment and transform it in an icon. So it's an emotional process. And this emotional process has to grown up from a field that is a group of people, a community. The community is very important today. But to transfer all this in action means we know all this, we all talk about this, we have to create a system out of this. This means in a school, people, they don't have to work isolated, but they have to work by project. And by project must include all the people in the project. So it's not a single designer, it's more to create groups, to make people able to grow, to work in communities, and to almost promote those communities. Maybe those communities will become brands.
Yeah.
So I think we have completely to break some rules, to think to the future, not as we are individual, all separate, but to think to a future that is completely looking from another perspective at fashion.
I agree. The white page. Jennifer, what's your white page in education when you're...
Gosh. I think when I hear all of this and I think about the scope of the challenge that we have in front of us, it's just, so what do I do with that as an educator? Are we doing it in fashion education? How, what are we doing? And the only thing that I can say is that right now we know what doesn't work. We've talked a lot about what's not working. It doesn't work, it's not working, okay? And we have to make sure that we're continually teaching students how to ask better questions. So if you know it's not working, then you have to ask different questions around that. And then we have to always make sure that we're teaching you how to see critically, and how to think critically. So it's cultivating the mind in a way that you can come up with non-obvious answers. We don't have the answers yet. We're not there. We're still in question phase, but all the information is there because we know it's not working. So we have to come up with the things that maybe aren't as palatable, when we talk about Uber and taxis. We have to find the non-obvious and not be reactionary. Tom Ford, that was a reaction. Didn't work. So you have to, that's maybe where the slowness comes in, to sit back and to reflect and to think about, again, I keep saying it, non-obvious solutions to some of the challenges that we face and not just react to them. And that requires a kind of a different sort of pace where it's not about likability. We're in a place where we can feel, and this is speaking to narcissists, whatever, where things are liked right away. And you have to be careful there because a lot of the new approaches that will enter the system will not be liked, so to speak, or so you have to then commit to another kind of failure. I think that we are seeing. Fashion is failing in a lot of ways. And so that's how I think what I'm going to take back from this and back into my colleagues in New York and back into the classroom is just another kind of critical engagement to create this new utopia.
Oh, good. Good.
Scary.
That's very nice. It's very nice. Stefan, you have the last word before we go to questions from the audience, because we have an interesting audience. I'm guessing they have some questions and want to react. Please give me your thoughts about the future.
I think a lot of things have been said.
Yeah.
I think we don't know where it's going to go, but you need to have that, what I mentioned before, the courage and the tools to make decisions. But I think what is definitely happening is that today's generation is also looking for this royal shortcut surrounded by flowers that will guide you to where, you know, milk and honey flows. And I think the right way will be through hard work and research and having an opinion, knowing where to go, because, you know, as Gandhi said, you have to lead for other people to follow, and and that is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And
Super. Thank you for this beautiful ending. I think the beautiful discussions we had were very useful, and I thank all my speakers, Stefan, Jennifer, Carlo, Florian, Danilo, and Anya. I think we will meet tomorrow beyond sitting under the tree to continue our projects and our ideas, and especially the white page, I hope. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you.